Contrast Uncut, yeah, you know that's us. Where we only speak the real and the real rock with us. Where we motivate the people and politic on success. Oh no, we ain't DJ Khaled, but they swearing we the best. Contrast Uncut, contrast Uncut, contrast Uncut, contrast Uncut.
What's happening? It's Contrast Uncut. It's season 3, episode 44. Big shout outs to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. It's your host, Zylo, aka DJ Juan Dollars, like I won some money. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have an incredible special guest. You know, he's from our hometown of Bakersfield, and he's definitely a premier person in the city when it comes to making a difference. This brother has done immense amount of community work. He's been a part of hospitals, boards to make a difference and change. I mean, he's a senior partner with the prestigious firm of Cohn, Stiles, as we see behind us. And I mean, the brother just keeps on going and going, from Children's Advocate Resource, Endowment, C.A.R.E, a nonprofit. He raises money for children. I mean, he attended and graduated from one of the most prestigious areas in law. He went to Harvard and took a class and went ahead and became one of the 2.5% of attorneys to meet a prestigious honor of the Rising Stars list in Southern California. I mean, the brother has definitely raised the bar and the standards in not only our hometown, but in the firm of the justice system. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, we'll have a chance to discuss all about this brother and his firm all episode. Matthew Clark, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. That was way too generous an opening you gave me there.
You know, I wish that, because see, majority of the stuff, because of COVID-19, we're doing Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
So we don't have our display prompt on the behind the camera right now like I would if I had my laptop.
Got it.
But I'm winging it, and I've done a lot of research on you, and I'm really impressed on what you have done for our community and, you know, what you continue to do. You don't accept what you're doing as enough. You always feel like there's always a constant room for improvement.
Well, you said the key word there, right? And I mean, this is kind of like what you're doing. It's about community, like being a part of a community. And once you're a part of that community, in order to make it better, you have to give of yourself, right? And so that's sort of the philosophy that I've used, not just through my legal career, but even before that. And Bakersfield's my home, man. I grew up here. I went away to school for a few years, and I came back, and I have no intention of ever leaving at this point. This is my home. And, let's each work just a little bit to make it better.
Absolutely. We all have to do our part, whether it's a small fraction or it's a whole situation that you have to go ahead and push the envelope, because everyone that can do something to make a difference will make a difference. It starts just with one person, and, it can always grow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And we live in a community that has some rather unique needs, right? I mean, yes. I think that you and I can recognize that. Anybody driving up and down the streets of our community can recognize that. There's some people in our community that are suffering. And I feel as though it falls on the shoulders of those of us that have the time and the means and, maybe the wherewithal to improve that situation. And so, each day we try to think of something little that we can do to make it better.
I do got to let you know from the very beginning, time's the most finite thing we have on this earth. Ooh. So I appreciate you taking the time to come sit down with my viewers, myself, and Contrast Uncut to, discuss everything about Matthew Clark as well as Cohn Stiles. I mean, we're going to dig in, guys. And I'm going to start you off now with breaking the ice. I have a quote. Let me know how this quote relates to you, or if it doesn't.
Boy. Okay, on the spot. Okay. I just want everybody to know you didn't prep me at all. So when I say a bunch of ridiculous stuff right now.
They know.
Yeah. Kev's laughing. Okay, here we go.
This is, it's organic. If you guys haven't noticed from watching over 100 and some episodes, it's all about organic. It becomes an interview, but it's also a conversation and growth. And, sometimes you can have a moment where you're inspired on something you've done in the past that, can change for something tomorrow. In other ways, you can inspire the viewers to do something they thought of, and they just had the brakes on, and now they cut the brakes and they're rolling downhill.
Right.
So I got this quote. Here we go. I'm a big believer in the fact that life is about preparation, preparation, preparation. Johnny Cochran.
Well, in my profession in particular, there is no truer statement than that, right? And I don't care if you're a Johnny Cochran fan or you're not a Johnny Cochran fan. If you want to be a successful lawyer, preparation is the key. I'll tell you who at the local level was a massive proponent of that quote was a gentleman by the name of Stephen T. Clifford, okay? And there's a law firm in Bakersfield called Clifford & Brown. Steve was one of the founders of that firm. He unfortunately passed away last year. But I had the opportunity of actually having him kick my ass over the years, right? And beat me up because he was always on the other side of cases from me. And I learned from him just how important preparation is. And so, yes, it's important to my particular line of work, the field of being a lawyer, but I defy you to think of another line of work where you're at a disadvantage if you're prepared.
Come on.
Right?
It's so important that the word preparation, it leads to another word that's also in between the lines, rehearsing.
Well,
you have
those
to
two things are the same, right? I mean, it's funny that you bring that up because in my job, especially when we end up in a courtroom, I equate it to theater, right? It's like putting on a play, man. I'm the director and one of the actors in that play. I've got my client that takes the stand. They're an actor in that play. The jury's my audience. The judge is my audience. And so, yeah, it is. Rehearsal is such a appropriate word that sort of dovetails in with this idea of preparation.
And what's so interesting is that as we're talking about your profession, it's also a correlation to life. It's about failure and growth. And the more you fail and you grow from it, you get more prepared for these situations. And then, you get a greater outcome. Everyone always puts the iceberg on. If I do something bad's going to happen to me. They forget about the iceberg. If I do something great, something better will happen to me.
Yeah, I like to think of it this way that, every time you fail, and trust me, no one... you will never find somebody that has led a successful life who has not had failures, right? And in fact, what they'll tell you almost every time is that it's those failures that ultimately led to their successes, right? And you've got to fail, you've got to fall in order to ultimately succeed. And it's those learning opportunities from failure. And I think that some of us we get really scared of failing, right? And
because it creates a fear of success as well. If you're afraid to fail, that also means you're also afraid to succeed. Because if the person that doesn't try, doesn't use it, will never ever be a person that can say they've done it.
Right. Well, that's true. Absolutely. I mean, if look, it's no different than learning how to ride a bicycle. Okay. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there that was just a naturally gifted young kid when they learned how to ride a bike and they didn't fall. But most all of us fell down.
I got scars to this day.
So do I, man. Truth be told, I still am known to fall off a bike every so often. So it happens, right? And it's those times that you fall.
Time out. I'm sorry. You're a cyclist. So you must be falling down big hills and mountains in order for you to admit that fault.
Yes. No, I've thought. So yeah, I used to ride a lot. I mean, I used to do 10,000 miles a year on a bike, which was crazy. I don't do that anymore, by the way, which is why my belly sticks out for it. But
he's healthy, guys.
but back in the day, I used to do all that riding, and oh man, I had some wrecks. I can remember coming home. I wrecked one time. I'd gone out and ridden like 110 miles, and I pull into my own street, and I wrecked turning on my street, and went down, blood all over the place, clothes ripped, and I pick up my bike, and of course, every cyclist is far more worried about their bike than they are about them, right? Did I hurt my bike? So you're looking at your bike, and I end up walking down the street to my house in those shoes, you can't walk in, so it's like click, 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 click. And right, exactly. And my wife opens the door, and here I'm all bloodied up and everything. I'm just like, take my bike to Action Sports, make sure it's okay, That's the first thought. So yeah, you got to fall down and get back up, right? I mean, that's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
What I learned from that experience is don't take that corner so fast.
Yes. Absolutely. You know, take a little bit more energy and fuel into your body before you go on a 110-mile journey. So when you get to the corner of your house, you're not grasp for air. Your body's like, I need to take a break.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. So you know what my favorite fuel was in those days for riding?
Huh.
Like, you know, these guys eat all this crazy stuff, you know, this fancy drinks and protein powders and this and that. That particular ride I was on that day, we came back in along what's called Zerker Road, which is sort of north of Bakersfield. And there's this old school convenience store out there. And, you know, you'd be 80 miles deep at that point, and you pull into this convenience store, and I get 2 corn dogs and a Coke. And that was fuel for the ride home.
That's super special.
Yeah. Well, you know how it was either deep fried burritos or corn dogs.
Yep.
You know what? That's the breakfast for champions in so many different fields. And I'm just proud that you admitted it on
Listen,
camera.
I will be honest with you folks. That's for darn sure.
It's so important because transparency in this world is something that we all need to gravitate more to and be okay with telling, you know, the real. Because the real is, you know, is not always easy said, but it creates more opportunities for everyone to grow. And, you know, we're going to keep on going into that. And I want to ask you, talking about law, justice system, did the game choose you or did you choose the game?
Oh man, that is a great question. You want to hear the story?
Come on.
Okay, I'll make it quick. All right. So I was one of these guys. I went, you know, kind of made it through high school. You know, I was a reasonably okay student, not great. Okay. When I was at Garces, I got into shooting. I did their video yearbook every year, and I did it mainly because I wanted to go to film school, and you needed to have a reel in order to go to film school. Kev gave me the high sign there, and so I used that reel that I had created doing the video yearbook for a few years to get into Loyola Marymount's film school. So I went to film school, man. I had no idea I was going to ever be a lawyer. I went to film school. I loved it, loved everything about film school. I was there during this like major transition in the industry where, you know, high def TV was not out yet. Okay. It was barely coming. You know, the idea of 4K was like, no one even knew what the heck that meant. We shot on 16 millimeter film, like the film, you know.
Wow.
And you shot on Reflex SR2s, if you know what those are, you know, and learned how to do it the old fashioned way. Literally would cut film the old way. You cut it and you glue it and you put a new piece in. And then along came this stuff called nonlinear editing, which was Avid based at the time.
I was just about to ask you about the Avid.
So Loyola teamed up with the Avid, the corporation, and so we had several of the original units on campus. And I learned how to cut on an Avid, which made me somewhat valuable. So I had jobs working on TV shows while I was in school because I was able to cut on an Avid and I knew how to do it. And so I worked on shows, stuff you guys never heard of. I mean, there was an old show called Real TV. I worked on a show called Mike and Maddie, which was a morning talk show. And so I worked on these shows and I thought, okay, that's it, man. This is my career. You know, this is what I'm going to do. So I graduated from film school, and I actually graduated early. And I was working for Real TV, and the show got canceled. And so then I picked up a couple other little gigs here and there, and it was hard because I wasn't in the union. So to get jobs was not easy. And I wasn't good with money. So, you know, when you're working, you were making good money, but then you wouldn't work for 2 or 3 months and it was like, you're just, you know, you're eating like bologna sandwiches or something.
Yeah, noodles.
Yeah, right, exactly. Ramen and I got along well. And so I called my folks and I was like, you know, I hate this crap. And they said, well, you know, my dad, I was very lucky. I grew up in a home where my mom was a teacher. She taught junior high at Thompson Junior High. And my dad was a college professor by trade, so, you know, he was an educator too. And they were like, don't be a dumbass, go back to school. And so I decided on one weekend that I was going to take the LSAT, which is the test you take to get into law school, right, and a test called the G.R.E., which is the test you take to go to business school. And I didn't know which one I wanted to do, so I took one of them on a Friday and one on a Saturday, okay? And whichever one I did better on, that's where I was going to go. I did better on the LSAT, and so I ended up going to law school. Had no idea that's what I wanted to do for a career, okay?
Wow.
And so the point of that story is, And by the way, law school was horrible. First year I hated it. I was ready to drop out.
He was in Stockton, by the way. He went from Marina Del Rey to Stockton.
Well, Sacramento. I was in Sac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got to be lucky in Sacramento because the law schools, the UOP law schools in Sacramento. So at least I'm in Sacramento. But let me tell you, it was hell because I'm a lifelong diehard Lakers fan. And that was when the Kings were good, right?
Yeah.
And I had to hear these Kings fans up in Sacramento like putting, pictures of Chris Webber outside the building. It was killing me. Okay, but anyway, first year of law school horrible, but I somehow survived. And then once you get through the first year, it's like cruise control. And so years 2 and 3, took the bar by some miracle, passed it the first time, and. Looked for every excuse in the world to like avoid studying for the bar. I went out and bought a dog just to not study because it's like that's how bad it got at one point. But anyway, the point of that story is.
Hold on, what's the name of the dog?
At that time, okay, you'll appreciate this because I was a film school guy, right?
Yeah.
I named the dog after a camera, so I had a Leica, and then I had another dog named Ari for Ari Flex. So there you go.
Film school student.
Yeah, right, classic. Because it doesn't get worse than that, does it? So I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
But the point of that story is I had no idea what I wanted to do. So this notion, I think that we get all caught up in this deal. Like we're always asking kids in high school, oh, what do you want to do when you get out? What do you want to do for a career? Man, they don't know. Most people don't know, right? And you kind of have to roll with the punches, right?
And try not to get beat up.
Exactly. And when you fall down, you get up, right? And I've gone and talked to kids in high school. I used to coach the mock trial team out at Stockdale years and years and years ago. And what I used to tell those kids is like, look, where most people fail in life, if you really want to boil down to it, they let the little things get them down, okay? They lose sight of the big picture. They let all the little minutiae in life get them down. And most importantly, they just stop showing up. Half of the battle in life, just show up. Just show up. When school's getting you down, I get it. It's tough at times. Life is tough at times. There's other things that are pulling at you and trying to get you to do, whatever. Just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And if you do that, success almost is guaranteed to follow.
To a degree. I mean, you can't be the fly on the wall because a fly could get spatted. You have to become a sponge in situations. You just can't just accept that where you're at is where it's okay. You have to find ways to utilize where you're at. You have to say, okay, what is my purpose of being here? And how do I utilize what I'm going through to be better for myself and better for my family? And it continues from there.
Right.
And
I'm oversimplifying it, saying just show up.
Oh yeah,
you actually have to show up and do something.
Yeah, no, but see, it's very important because like we're in a world where people think that half the battle is showing up, but you have to have the right mind frame. You have to show up with the right mind frame. You have to show up with the ability to say, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever reasonable task I have to do to get this done, and remove the excuse and make that excuse the reason to get it done.
I think for me, don't show up really means don't quit. Okay, and I think we've made. The world we live in now, it's real easy to just get discouraged and quit. And don't quit, right? I mean, look, I'm sure that with your podcast, right? I mean, it wasn't success from day one, I imagine.
I'm happy you brought that up because it took a moment of people telling me no. I couldn't get a job at this place, that place, and I followed up. I had resources to get in, didn't work. And then I even reached out another end. Well, if you can't we can't work it out this way from my resume, then let's do something somewhere else. I'll join it. I'll be an intern, whatever. And it didn't work out. And then it was just like, okay, well, if I keep on getting no, I got to find a way to make a way to say yes. And you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And then I got a situation where I was blessed to work with a guy named Kev King that you guys always hear behind the camera, my producer. And we've been rocking and rolling since.
Yeah, you didn't quit.
Never.
Right? When you were told no, you didn't take no for an answer.
Yep.
You pushed on, right? And that's kind of what it takes. So, yeah, man, that's my story.
So,
I had no idea what I was going to do.
I got to ask you, what was your confirmation that, when that law is supposed to be what you're supposed to do with your life?
Okay, so once I finished law school and started practicing, I was very lucky in the sense that I immediately got into the practice that I've been in my whole career, which is personal injury work as a trial attorney. That's all I've ever done. Okay, I represent people who have been injured, and if necessary, and we can't resolve their case through other means, we go to trial, right? And I mentioned it earlier, trial is a little bit like putting on a play. It's like theater. It's like movie work or TV work.
Mock
and
trial.
so, exactly. So in a way, my background in TV production really helped me be a better trial lawyer. In film production, it helped me be a better trial lawyer. I understand that, you know, you've got to have a script. Well, in my business, what's the script? Well, it's A, it's preparation. B, it's this thing we call depositions, where we take people's testimony well before you ever get into a courtroom, right? So I know what they're going to say. So it's funny. It was like I prepared all my life up to film school to be, you know, work in TV or film, and then I go off to law school, and then I go be a lawyer, and I'm still kind of, in a way, doing some of the same things. It's like logistics. What order do I want to put these witnesses on? How do I want to tell this story, right? And so there were a lot of similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. Psychologically, from the courtroom to watching television, you have to be entertained psychologically. You have to have it where these points, key elements, you know, rectify or get in with the person that's on the, you know, the jury.
You are super right. Like the difference between good trial lawyers and just mediocre trial lawyers are good trial lawyers know how to hook that jury, right? And it's just like how a good movie hooks an audience, or a good TV show hooks, you know, people sitting at home on their couch.
It starts with the trailer. And, you know, for your guys' situation, it starts with your opening statement.
Right. The opening statement is very much the trailer of the trial, right? It's the preview. Here's what's going to come over the coming days as we put all these witnesses on and begin to, you know, present this testimony. But the order that you put those witnesses on, right? How you tell the story, it's very film-like. It's very storyteller-like. And so, you know, that was a huge benefit to me to have that background.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I got to know, what have been some of the highs and lows that you faced, you know, during your transitions from TV, behind the scenes, to now you're in the forefront of the courtroom making a difference in someone's life? And, you know, I've read some of the reviews. You've definitely won a lot of money for people. You've changed many, many people's lives from a tragedy or a misfortune. And, you know, that's empowering by so many different degrees.
Well, I can certainly talk about some of that. Like the lows, I mean, for me, you asked kind of going through film school and then on to law school. That first year of law school was a low, man. It beat me over the head like there was no tomorrow. I mean, I wanted to quit so bad. I remember calling my folks. I'm like 22 years old, calling my folks almost in tears wanting to quit, right? And they didn't really push me, but they made me feel guilty enough that I didn't want to quit, which is important to have people in your life like that, right?
Yes,
that kind of keep pushing you forward. That was certainly lows. And throughout my career, you know, look, what I like to say is I very much like winning, right? People in my world are competitive people by nature. Sometimes some of the most competitive people you'll ever meet. You know, they're almost like athletes. And you know how if you ever interview like a professional athlete, they're almost always horrible gamblers, and because they're addicted to winning, right? And we're a little bit like that too. I mean, you want to win. You're very competitive. Although I think what drives me more than wanting to win is the absolute hate of losing, right? And there is a difference between those two things, right? Liking to win, well, we all like to win, but, you know, I despise losing. So on those few occasions where I've had cases that didn't go the way that I'd like them to go, those are low points for sure. High points, I mean, there's nothing better, and it's not about the amount of money so much. It's about the reaction that the client gives you when you've done right by them, right? And that's what keeps you going on to the next one. It's knowing that. Can I tell you a story about it real quick?
Go ahead.
So I represented this little boy years ago. He was probably about, I don't know, probably about 6 years old. And his family, very poor family, living out in Ridgecrest. The dad was an auto mechanic. The mom was a stay-at-home mom. He had a couple of older brothers and sisters. And it was the dad was out in the front yard, you know, watering the garden. And the little boy was out there with the dad. And the dad, craziest case, by the way. The dad looks over, and the neighbor's fence is on fire. Okay, so he's like, what the heck? So he's like running with the hose over there to put out the fire on the neighbor's fence. Well, what he doesn't know is his little boy runs over there with him. And the reason the fence had caught on fire, you ready for this? A giant blackbird had landed on the power lines that ran along the front of their house. Its wings spread out and connected. You know how there's usually 3 lines, 3-phase power.
Yeah.
It connected over the phases, sparked. The bird caught on fire, shot down like a meteor into the fence,
Wow.
and caught the fence on fire. Well, the power line melted and fell, and it was in the street, but it was still live, okay? That shouldn't have been live. They're supposed to go off when that happens, all right? Well, the little boy, dad doesn't know, he's, emergency trying to put out the fire, runs out, steps on the wire, blows his foot off, okay? Lives, shockingly, but blows his foot off. So I litigated that case against SoCal Edison. That case probably went on for at least a year, maybe 2 years. Took a bunch of depositions. I learned all about, high power lines and electrical transmission. And I was ultimately able to win the case. And so I win the case, and we get the little boy quite a bit of money. And the mother sends me this photograph. Now, mind you, these people were really poor, could barely get by, but nice people. And I had been in some magazine here in Bakersfield. I don't even know what it was. But the little boy had cut out the picture of me, and he had like a little plastic sheriff's badge he'd wear around the house, and he had glued my picture onto the sheriff's badge. And I guess he was going around the house and he'd wear it because he wanted to be like me. Wow. And that made such even right now telling that story makes an impact on me. That, I was able to impact not just his life, but his parents' life for the good. And, do my best to correct what was really a wrong for those people. That, that story's just sat with me ever since. So those are the high moments, right? When you do something really good for your clients.
Just so as you're being transparent with us, you made me think of something. My uncle was telling me about my great-grandfather. He was an attorney. He went to Yale and became an attorney. He lived in Michigan. He was cutting down trees and trying to figure out Grand Rapids, Michigan, the furniture capital. He was trying to figure out what would be able to build houses and better furniture with the wood. And at that point, it's the 1800s, they still have Indians. And so they're having to find people in their cities to go ahead and represent people in court for people that do wrong in their reservation areas.
Yeah.
So my
law is totally different on a res, yeah.
So this is, like I said, 1800s. My great-grandfather would go down and be the judge and reside on things, and in return, they would tell him what trees to cut down, which were the oak trees. And so
the ones that made the best furniture.
Yes, and so what was able to happen was there was a Chicago fire in like 1812, and it burnt down the whole city. And then my family was the family that supplied all the wood based upon the Indians telling us that that's the right wood to supply. And, hit fast forward, the irony of this whole story is that my family kept that same energy, and they bought property on the West Coast. And it's a place called Hume Lake.
Yeah, I know where
My
Hume
family is Thomas Hume Hefferon. And
Really?
they own the Hume Lumber Yard because they used to use Hume Lake to get redwood trees down and throw them across the lake to get to the railroad line and get them out. The problem is that redwood trees weighed too much and weren't great for making furniture. They were just really nice. So
Too oily.
The price never ever made sense, and so they actually lost everything on the West Coast.
Wow.
So there's like this whole story about my great-grandfather saying, yeah, we sent 12 million back to the West Coast and got 0 back for the East Coast.
Well, the end of the story is not good, but it's a good story nonetheless, right? I mean,
And, yeah, but
you guys were like lumber barons.
To a degree, I mean, they took that money they made from that, and being attorneys, they got into the bank system.
Okay.
Because they had so much money coming in, they started doing loans for people.
Yeah.
And then their loans that they started to became a state bank. It was a 3rd Street National Bank. And eventually that merged with 5th Street National Bank, and then now we have 5th Third Street.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people in Bakersfield, when they've kind of gotten to the point where they've made a good sum of money, they get into what we call the hard money loan business, which is, if a bank, maybe their project's too risky for a bank that would charge them 3 or 4% interest, they go to somebody else, the hard money guy, that'll maybe charge them more interest, maybe it's 6, 7, 8%, but they can get the loan, and as long as it's a reasonable amount of risk, you're making 6, 7, 8% of your money. So that happens in Bakersfield to this very day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's over 200 years of history.
Yeah.
But no, when you were talking about it, it just made me realize, like, you know, I do have a big passion for law. And you were saying that, it's like, well, why do I have such a big passion for law? Why is this resonating so much for me? And it was just like, oh, yeah, duh.
You've got it in your blood.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, arguing's a fun thing. If you know how to word your word stuff right, and, you know, if you know what you're talking about, it could be really fun.
Yeah. Although I'll say this, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, I'm good at arguing, maybe I'd be a good lawyer. I think there's a degree of truth to that, but honestly, what make you a good lawyer is just hard work. I mean, that's kind of what it takes.
Right.
You got to be willing to put in the time.
Absolutely. I mean, as we said earlier, preparation, rehearsing, that's not 10 minutes of looking down and looking at the TV screen and it's going to make a difference. No.
Right.
It's how many hours do you put in for a case?
I just finished a case earlier this year. I'd worked on it over 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. I bet you we were into that case for at minimum 30 depositions, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents filed with the court, you know, multiple attempts to settle it at mediation, multiple trips to Fresno because of the federal case appearing in court. So yeah, no, it just depends on the case, but you can put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into a case.
And, you know, on that note, speaking about how many hours you do put in, I got to make sure I give you my flowers. You know, all the dedicated parents that come on the show, dedicated dad like yourself, I got to make sure I give you flowers for everything you've been able to keep on doing. And, you know, it's not easy living into your dreams, doing what you do daily, making a difference, and still coming home and keeping the foundation together.
Yeah, no, well, I had it pretty easy in the sense I only have one child, and so it's, you know, it's a little easier in that regard. And you know, his mom is the best as far as raising him and making sure that he's taken care of, and so I had it pretty easy in that respect. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, you know, you've got to have some balance in life, right? And that's where it gets a little tricky. I mean, yes, you're working in a profession that, you know, requires a great deal of time and energy, but you also have to have that time and energy to play catch in the front yard. Yes. You know, to hit the pool on the weekend, light up the barbecue on a Sunday, you know, those are the kinds of things. And frankly, that's the kind of stuff that is really what's important in life, you know.
Absolutely. I learned it from Nipsey Hussle. He said kids spell love Time.
Yeah, that's
and, you know, it's so imperative that we invest our time into our children. And, you know, I've seen pictures of online floating around of you and your son, and, you know, it's important that you can see the enjoyment of the time you guys do spend together. It's not so much about, I got this from another guest I've interviewed, and he said it's not so much about the 10 hours I spend with you, it's about the meaningful time we do have together.
Yeah. I think time, well, you said it kind of right when we started, right? Time is your most valuable commodity, right? And that not only applies to work, but it applies to your home life, and I truly believe it applies to what you give back to your community. I mean, it means one thing, you know, our firm, we've been known over the years writing checks to different organizations, right? We sponsored the first burn center in town when they put it in at San Joaquin Community Hospital. We've done a lot of work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. This year and last year, we've really done a lot to support the homeless initiatives around town, especially Lewis Gill at the Homeless Center, because we think he's really making an impact, right? But that's us giving money. I think that to really make a difference, you have to give time. And so, I volunteer with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I do their victim impact panel. Now with COVID, we haven't been able to do it, but before that, every month, we do a third Wednesday of every month, 3 hours. We go talk to people who have gotten DUIs, try to convince them, don't do this again, right? And it's something that at our firm, it's not just me, but it's my partners, our associates. I'll shout out my boy, George Barrientos. George, who's masked in the background, making sure I don't say anything stupid. It's something where we surround ourselves with those kinds of people who not only want to open up their wallet and help out a little bit when they can, but give up that time, that valuable commodity.
It's important to see people in the community that have, importance in their career, but also take the time to give back just like everybody else to make a difference. And, it's, as we've been talking about, Cohn Stiles has definitely done that as long as I can remember. and I'm late '80s baby myself.
Yeah,
And
you would have remembered us as the Chain Younger law firm.
Yes.
Yeah, the Chain
Yes.
Younger days. And, look, our now deceased partner, Milt Younger, God rest his soul, he too was very much a proponent of you give back in both, if we can give back financially, great, but you also give back in the way of time. I mean, I know it's probably not hot right now, but he was a huge proponent of, funding the local democratic causes. And, local Republicans hated Milt for that reason. But that was his thing, man. He wanted to support the little guy. And he thought that the labor unions and some of the democratic champions in our community were there to support the little guy. And honestly, this firm still believes in that. Maybe not quite with our political advocacy, but we certainly believe in this idea of we are here to support the little guy, right? We don't represent the big corporations. We don't, I don't represent businesses. I represent individuals.
And I do want to spend just a little bit more time digging into some of the history about Chain Cohn Stiles and its prestigious law group, law firm that it has resonated not only in Bakersfield and Kern County, but across California. You guys have made a difference.
Yeah, we were, first of all, we've got to be certainly the oldest personal injury firm in the Central Valley of California. We're 86 years old. And we're likely one of the oldest just strictly personal injury firms in the state, period. We've been around a very long time. The philosophy over that entire time, it started with Morris Chain, it then went on to Milt Younger, and then of course this next generation, which was my partner David Cohn, and now me, really the fourth generation of the firm. And the philosophy through all those generations has been the same, and that is we stand up for the little guy, we represent the individual, we believe in good, quality legal work, and we believe in treating our clients right.
Yes.
And, it's really that philosophy. If that's your philosophy and you do those things, everything else is pretty easy.
It's so important because you said it right there. If you say something and you do it, it's a big difference, because a lot of people say a lot of things and they don't do the walk, the talk.
Man, you are so on point with that, because in my industry in particular, there's a lot of people who will say that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't even do X, little less Y and Z, right? And we are lucky in Kern County. Most of the practitioners that I deal with, okay, I know them, they know me, our word is our bond. They know that I would never do something to go against my word, and I trust them and know that they wouldn't do anything to go against theirs. That is not the case. If I got lawyers from LA or San Francisco on the other side of me, you can't trust them as far as I can throw them, right? And I ain't that strong, so I'm not throwing them very far. And so the point is, like, your word is your bond, right? If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Right? And don't commit to something that you can't do, right? Don't make a promise that you can't fulfill.
A no will go a lot longer and faster for somebody than, yeah, we're going to do it at some point.
Well, people will respect you a lot more in the long run for saying no than otherwise saying, yeah, we'll do it, and then you never actually follow through. That's the quickest way to earn somebody's disrespect. I
have a testimony. I spoke to Matthew earlier this week, and he was ready to go the next day to do the interview. And then, I had an incident where a family member got stuck on the side of the road down south, and I'm, down south helping a family member out and making everything work. And he was once again available the very next day. And,
Well, let me make a point towards you then, okay? And this means a lot to me. And don't think that at least I pay attention to this kind of stuff, right? You and I had worked it out. We were going to do it one day earlier this week. You had your emergency. And then I noticed that last night you sent me a message. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And you were like, hey, man, everything's good. Let's get this back on. And I was like, this guy's a go-getter. He sent me this at 11 o'clock at night. That earned all kinds of respect points with me, right? That you were thinking about it at 11 o'clock at night when most people are, winding down for the day, going to bed, whatever it may be, you were like, okay, I want to get this back on. That means a lot. Like, that instantly told me that you were the real deal, that you were bringing your A game. And I try to do that same thing with my clients. Like, I got clients, I'm one of these crazy lawyers that my clients oftentimes get my cell phone number, I give it up, right? And there are occasions where I've regretted it, but most of the time it works out fine. And, if a client sends me a text at, 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, I'm probably going to answer that text. Why? Because that's how you prove that you're different from everybody else.
Yes. And I'm happy you brought that up, because that is once again another variable that Chain Cohn Stiles represents. Is they're different. They do separate themselves from other firms in the state, period. And you do as well. And it's very important just what you do in life. You try to, go along with other people do, but separate yourself so you stand out, so you get a greater opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's, I believe that we're in the service business. We're providing a service. And so in order to separate us from everybody else, A, we have to do the very best legal work, but B, we got to provide the best service while we're doing that good legal work, right?
Absolutely.
And that's responding to those messages late at night, answering those emails on a Sunday, making those calls back. It's the end of the day, you've got a whole pile of stuff you got to finish. Making those calls at the end of the day, right? That's what makes the difference.
In the hip hop world, they call it the GOAT. Someone the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And someone that puts in the time, the effort, more than just the outlier 10,000 hours. Someone that responds and jumps to when things need to be responded to and jumped to. And even times where they don't need to be jumped to, if you put that energy, it makes someone else be more influenced and more, abundant to doing change and doing a service to what you're trying to accomplish.
As my 15-year-old kid tells me, it's about always be hustling. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Grinding, hustling, making things happen. My family's always dubbed me as Mr. Make It Happen, because like I said from the beginning, you have to remove the excuse and make that excuse the reason to get it done.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you notice, my common denominator of my show is success. You have a wide array of success that we humbly appreciate your presence and sharing. But there's a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, that are afraid of success. And it takes, in your situation, you were blessed to have parents that helped you, push you, and make you understand that if you don't do something, life's gonna pass you.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what you'd be doing if you didn't do that LSAT. You didn't take those necessary steps.
I don't know. Yeah, no, isn't it funny when you think back on it? You go, gosh, it was these, literally one day in my life changed the rest of it. One day. I made one decision one day, and it forever changed the trajectory of my life. And there's a lot of truth in that, right? And actually, that can happen in a negative way too, right? You can make a bad decision that might negatively impact the trajectory of your whole life. But when I think back on it, I think of that day, I'm sitting there talking to my folks, like, hey man, I'm tired of this, tired of not getting a paycheck and working job to job. I hated it. I want to have something steady. Okay, go back to school. Well, I'm going to take these tests. Boom, everything from that point changed. And so it's funny, right? I mean, I think we probably all in our lives have sort of similar stories, but it's weird how life works.
And see, we're talking about that one moment, and you sort of foreshadow where I'm going with it next. I have this awareness segment. We're going to take a pause and,
Sure.
on the history, but also we're going to dig into my segments. And, my first segment's awareness. It's about police interaction.
Yeah, let's talk
And,
about
that one moment where things can go wrong and something can happen, unfortunately, goes a lot in our own hometown, but also across the nation. And,
well, especially as we've seen just in the past month.
Absolutely. I mean, as Will Smith said, racism hasn't stopped. It's just now more televised with phones. And, there's all these things that go on. And my main thing that I believe in is that if we have awareness, knowledge is power, but when you use that knowledge, it's a superpower. And, awareness is key.
I like that.
And so it's very important that we grow and we give as much knowledge in this situation of interacting with the police while they're being pulled over. That is my segment. I want to know, when's the last time you were pulled over, and what did you do in that situation to give advice to someone in that situation?
Okay. You want to do it right now?
Let's go.
Okay. All right, so I got to think about it. I drive really slow, Everybody makes fun of me.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah, so everybody makes fun of me. I drive really slow. A few years ago, I thought I was going to be like a hot dog, so I went out and bought this BMW M4. It was awesome, by the way. Super fast. And then all the guys in the office make fun of me because I'd be going home on the West Side Parkway and I'd be tooting along at like 62 and just like, you know, like a Volkswagen Rabbit passed me, you know, and so they're all making fun, like, why'd you buy that car, man? You're driving 62.
Our West Side Parkway is like an Autobahn. Like people hit like 140 on there.
62, you're likely to get killed. You get run over, right? But that was me. So I haven't been pulled over a lot in recent years. The last time I recall, I was with my family. We were driving up. My folks live up in Monterey Bay. We were going up that way, and I was driving on the 101, and I think I got pulled over for doing about 75, 78 in a 65. Okay, but here's the deal, right? I was in a pack of cars, and they ended up pulling me over, and you know, I roll down the window. The chippy comes up to my window, and mind you, I've taken these guys' depositions thousands of times now, right? I mean, I've taken more cop depots over the years because anytime there's an auto accident case, we typically depose the officer that did the report, right? Right. So I've taken these guys' depots, and here's what I've learned, right, is that most of the police officers out there, be it CHP, sheriff, BPD, whatever, most of them are decent human beings that want to do the right thing, okay? I can't say they all are, but most of them are. And you don't realize, and at least in traffic stop situations, where I was totally guilty, okay? I mean, it was all my fault. I was speeding, there's no question.
Did you ask the CHP if he actually took a picture of it? Because, you know, if you're known for driving slow, I would love to see that picture.
Of me speeding?
Yeah, you speeding.
I should have kept the ticket, honestly, just to, like, as proof that I knew how to drive faster. But yeah, no, so I knew I was wrong. And look, the thing that I was told years ago is, you don't know if that last guy's call was a wreck where somebody got killed, right, for driving too fast. And so you can see why they'd be angry if they just dealt with a death case. I took a Chippy's office, a CHP officer's depot, this a couple years ago, over in San Luis Obispo. And my case was it was an accident on Highway 166. If you've ever driven that road, it's dangerous road, okay? He was late to the deposition because he had just had to work all night because there was a wreck there at the Cuesta grade coming down into San Luis Obispo. 2 college students in a car got wrecked. They got in a wreck, both of them killed. Said the woman had been decapitated, you know. And so can you imagine, you just came from that and now you got to go into a depot. And so, look, I've always tried to keep that in my mind. It's like, you know, I don't know, you know, be respectful, answer the guy's questions, give him my stuff. You know, what is there to fight about? You know you're going to get the ticket. Why argue, right? Argue with the judge later if you want to argue with the judge.
That's your time.
That's your time to argue, but arguing with the cop ain't going to get you anywhere. Yeah, that's the last ticket I got. I don't know that that's a great example, by the way.
Well, no. What you did do is you put what to do while you don't get tickets. You drive slow. You stay at a moderate speed. You know, you're not in a rush. And most people that get pulled over to start anything is in a rush, not thinking about what they're doing. And, you know, you can tell that you're calm, cool, collective as you're traveling. You're not in a rush.
Yeah, well... No, I mean, look, I think that there are always times that we're going to be in a rush, right? You know, trust me, there's been mornings where I'm running late to the office or whatever it may be, and I got to get here in a hurry. But I also know, I mean, if you just do the math in your head real quick, you doing 70 versus doing 80 on the West Side Parkway isn't even going to save you 45 seconds of time, right? And yet you put yourself at risk for a ticket, you put yourself at risk for an accident. If you killed somebody, it would be considered manslaughter at that speed, right? So, you know, you just kind of think of it in those terms. You're not really saving any time anyway, right? Yeah. It may seem like you are, but you're really not. And so, yeah, driving slow is one thing. But look, I don't want to ignore an issue, and that is that, I mean, look, let's just get it out in the open, man. I'm a pale, white, old guy driving a car slow. The odds of me getting pulled over is like almost zero, okay? But I don't know that that's necessarily true. And you know, if you're a younger person, if you're of color, right? I don't think the world's as fair. I honestly believe that. And it's a different situation.
In Bakersfield alone, yes, you could. I've been with my family members and they've been pulled over for being black on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And you know, when you get pulled over, you're drifted not onto the main street to a dark street, and all they're looking for is drugs, guns. You have
They're
none.
they're looking for something bigger.
And you don't have it, they let you go. They forget to tell you why they even pulled you over, because it's a lie from the beginning, and they have a right to lie. And you know, but putting fast forward.
Hold on. They don't have a right to lie, but that's a different situation.
Yeah.
They don't have that right, but that's okay.
Right. Shoot, you can't let them tell you that in the middle of it. But that's here nor there. I've also had a situation where I've been with my wrestling buddies, and we're on the nice side of town, the suburb area by Centennial, and we've been pulled over, and they gave us exhibition of speed just because we're on the wrong side of town.
Yeah. See,
And we're both white skinned, and he's way more white than I am
but
with
that's
our tone.
because of your age, right?
And we were
Partly.
judged based upon our
Could have been the car
poverty-stricken
you were in?
neighborhood. We were in the S10. It was a nice S10. His parents had money, and
Yeah.
so, but it was, we lived on by South High School.
Okay.
That was on our license plate. That got pulled over. He said, "Why are you guys on our side of town?" That was his first statement out. Not, "I'm
It's
pulling
none
you
of his
over for
business,
this."
so.
Any of that. It was, "What are you doing on my side of town?" And the oddest thing is, I remember, like, I'm in high school. I'm used to going to this with my family, not with my wrestling buddy.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, it's not so much, it is color, don't get me wrong, but it's also poverty. People, they don't want you over there. They think you're going to do something. It's like, we're literally going to the high school to go to practice.
Look.
Because we're on the Kern County wrestling team.
The world is not a fair place.
Yes.
I mean, it ain't fair. I hope in my lifetime it gets to be more fair. I'll tell you, man, I really hope that the momentum that we have in this country going right now, and that we've seen rise up over the last, 5 to 6 weeks, that momentum can be sustained certainly through November. I mean, the population, I know you talk to some younger people in your podcast, but you've got a lot of people over the age of 18. And if you really want to see change, you're going to see change at the ballot box.
Yeah.
And you have got to get out there and vote, because if you don't, all of this uprising, all of the good that we've seen over the last 5-6 weeks is kind of for naught, right? I mean, I think, I hate to get political and probably piss a bunch of people off, but I'll just say it. I think that what we've been doing with taking down some statues, I think what we've been doing with changing the names on buildings is all moving things in a positive direction.
Yes.
But that in and of itself does not
Justify.
make things, well, it doesn't make things equal, okay?
Yes.
And in order for us to get to a point of true equality, you're going to have to change things at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Okay? You've got to elect more people. You got to, if I can really be frank about it, you got to elect fewer people that look like me and more people that look like you and Kev. Okay? Because that's how you're going to affect real long-term change. And so I just hope that we are able to keep this momentum going for another 3.5, 4 months, right, and get us through that election.
Yeah, no, I feel very strong about it. I do, more voices, more people. It's like we all get upset that certain people use their platform the wrong way. It's like, why are you going to talk about this person, that person, when you have no room to talk about those types of things? Because you don't have that field or that background to discuss it. But what we should take our energy in discussing is, where we can put that energy of going to go vote, going to go make a difference with what your voice really counts for.
Yeah, I mean, I really get tired of people saying, "Oh, my vote doesn't count," for whatever reason. Yeah, it does, because if enough of you go do it, it makes a huge, huge difference. Look, I predict we live in like the red island in a blue sea of California, right? That's Kern County, and I mean, Kev's nodding his head.
I agree.
I think that your generation has the ability to change that. Okay, I think that in 10, maybe 20 years from now, this will no longer be this red island in the middle of blue California. I think that, we can get some people in here that are more centrist or leaning to the left, and that will help institute some change, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not, and I mean, hey, look, man, I'm taking over your show with voting. I'm sorry, but I'll just make this last point. It's not just who's going to be president or who's going to be your, state representative or your federal representative. It's the little elections that matter. It's those school board elections, right? That makes a difference, because some of those people that run for school board, they go on to the next step and they go up for higher office, and then they go on to the next step and they go up for higher office. So don't just think it's about the big ticket things. It's those little elections, right? It's about, I mean, when I was a kid, it was a big deal. Kern High School District was conservative, still is, but it was crazy conservative. I mean, you couldn't read Catcher in the Rye, right? If you were in the Kern High School District. Toni Morrison was banned at a point in the Kern High School District.
What the fuck?
I'm not look it up, man. Toni Morrison was...
This is the largest high school district...
in the country.
In the country. Like, that is absurd.
So those little elections mean something, right? It's not just about the big ticket elections. So just keep that in mind.
No, that's huge. You know what? I am going to put a pause on the vote, because I do want to knock out the rest of these segments, because I feel we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I can make some phone calls and we can do some real difference in just calling different people and letting them know, hey, we can make a difference by having our voice start changing. But I got this thing called Trading Places.
Okay, all right.
And, Kev's laughing in the background. My viewers
Wasn't that a
knows.
TV show?
No, it was a movie.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of
Trading spouses.
Yeah, there you go. That is a TV show.
You know what? Trading spaces. They have a similar type of thing.
Wasn't there? There is a show though, I think, called Trading Spouses. Isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
But I'm not trading mine, and we're not having that game today. So we have this thing called Trading Places. It's from Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy movie, Mortimer. They wake up, and the guy that lives in the street is now a stockbroker, and the guy that was just a stockbroker now lives in the streets.
I remember that movie.
And so I take that concept and idea, and I take two iconic people, and we swap them, and we talk about it.
Let's do it.
And so for you today, I got Wayne Gretzky trading places with Magic Johnson.
Ooh. That's from my era. Did you pick that just because I know, that's like my era?
Well, one more in Bakersfield. If you don't know, Wayne Gretzky runs the Bakersfield Condors, and is connected to Edmonton Oilers.
Yep.
The other perspective is that I also looked on your page. You're a Laker fan and a Kings fan. So I was like, oh, I've always wanted to do these two and swap.
Yeah.
He's my perfect candidate. Boom!
Okay, let's do it. So how do we start this off?
So this is how it goes. Question number one is, will it work? Can you see Wayne Gretzky as Magic Johnson, Michigan State, Los Angeles Laker, super
entrepreneur, yeah.
major entrepreneur, game
Part
changer?
owner of the Dodgers, yeah.
And can you see that be Wayne Gretzky? Can you see Magic Johnson being okay transferring over to Wayne Gretzky's life and living his life? And that's,
You know what? Weirdly enough, you've picked one that could work, right? Because those two guys kind of had similar trajectories. I know I've used that word already in the podcast, but they've got similar trajectories, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the sense that they were both considered the greatest, right? I mean, Gretzky was literally the great one, right? And
Dream Team, hold on. Now, I was a kid, Kev. I know you're old, so let me know this.
don't watch out. He's younger than me, man. Right? 6'9", 265. What was Magic in his playing days? He wasn't that big.
No,
like-
it was like 6'4",
No, he was
6'9".
6'9". But what was his weight? 230 maybe?
Oh, his weight.
Oh, he was 220, 225.
Nah, dude, that's a lie. He had to be more than that.
See, we live in the show me now era, so
That may be the
Johnson.
published stats, but there's
Yeah.
no way he was that thin.
Johnson playing.
What year? At that, you have to remember what. At
It's
what
playing
time.
weight.
Well, he got bigger later in his career.
225.
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's
Hey,
not true, dude.
For the record, everybody, I was right.
What website did you pull that from? Is that some
Google?
Wikipedia crap?
That's Google. That's player profile.
I don't know if I can argue with a lawyer.
No. He looks bigger than that. Anyway, point is, he looked funky on skates. There's no question. And Wayne's way too little to play basketball.
No, not necessarily. I could see him be a Steve Nash out there. I could see him really dishing
Well,
out
he
the
was.
dimes.
I mean, you know what he was great at? I mean, he had great hands. So, I mean, maybe that translates into basketball, right? As a point guard. And B, he was fast, super fast. And so that translates into being a good guard, right?
Yes.
So maybe it could have worked. I don't know.
The one thing I can't
Well,
see
he was 6
happening.
foot.
Wayne was 6 feet.
6
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
185 pounds.
What would you say, 185?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that sounds closer to right to me.
So a 40-pound difference, 8 inches of difference, and the only difference I can see is Wayne Gretzky can't start the NBA Finals as the center and the point guard in the same series. Not happening.
that definitely would not
Those
happen.
are different fights, too.
Yeah, I don't think that Wayne could have thrown up as many triple doubles as Magic. Let's put it that way. He could have dished a lot of assists, but I don't think he throw. I mean, how many triple doubles Magic have? It's like he had the record for a long time.
Yeah, until recently we had someone break it.
Yeah,
Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Shout out Russ. So you know what? That's been an interesting topic because I'm actually happy that I had someone that can really dig into the details of the people instead of like I don't know who they are, but you know what? It'd be nice if Wayne Gretzky was with all the women Magic had, and then Magic would have enjoyed all the women that Wayne had. So that works.
We didn't even go down that road. No, listen. Those are two guys. If you don't know who those two guys are, you don't know sports, right?
Yeah, they're both very impactful, especially in Southern California and California, period.
Well, Wayne, keep in mind, the Kings were basically garbage until Wayne came along. And you know who was instrumental? I mean, here's another connection between them, right? Who brought Magic to the NBA? Jerry Buss. Who brought Wayne Gretzky to Hollywood? Jerry Buss, because he owned the Kings back then.
Wow.
So, and Jerry was the king of Showtime. I mean, basically, Wayne was Showtime for the Kings, just like Magic was Showtime for the Lakers. There's another connection.
I did that by accident, guys. I promise you. I promise you. And then it looks like a masterpiece as he tells it. That's why you should hire him as your attorney.
For my knowledge of Wayne Gretzky and Magic Johnson.
No, just how you delivered it. Just how you delivered it. That's the biggest thing.
Actually, that's a conversation you and I could... listen, you could pick 2 other people. I don't care who you pick. We could find a connection.
Hey, you know what? That's true. 3 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Especially
We can
when
figure
you
something
level up. So I got this thing called Impulse Q&A. I promise you, I know we're starting to run out of time, but I got this thing called Impulse Q&A, and you got to answer 3 questions. I got them right here on my phone, kid. My producer's, he's spazzing behind the camera. It's okay. It's our laughter while he does the spaz moment. And, Impulse Q&A, you got to answer 3 questions. If you don't like the question, it's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You just say pass, and
Okay.
I'll get another one for you.
Okay.
And, they're from fan perspective, and here we go.
Okay.
Question number 1. Favorite beach or getaway location?
Oh, easy. My favorite beach is a little beach up near Pacific Grove, California. That's where my folks live. And it's called the Silomar State Beach. And it's a beautiful white sand beach right by Pebble Beach, if you know Pebble Beach Golf Course. It's right by there, Monterey. Water's cold, gotta have a wetsuit, but I love that beach. That's my favorite beach.
So I've been trying to figure out, how do you get down to Big Sur, where the beach is, once you're up there traveling on the PCH?
It's super dangerous, man. People die getting down to that beach.
Oh, so
'Cause the cliff,
there's no way to get down there?
No. You can't drive down there. You gotta hike down there. Yeah.
Enjoy the sunset
Yeah.
from his location, not from Big Sur.
Yeah, don't go to the Big Sur beach. It's dangerous. It really is. No, go to Big Sur. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But you're up on that cliff, right? To get down, you gotta hike your ass down. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, I'm cool. I'm enjoy the views. Question number 2.
Okay.
What item do you use daily that you would have to live without?
That I couldn't live without?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me think about that for a second. Probably I would absolutely have a meltdown if I couldn't have it. I got this coffee machine at home, right? It's like one of them old school espresso machines, like, steam.
And you pull the spout.
Yeah. And I gotta have that every morning, or I'm like a zombie. So I'm a coffee addict, unfortunately. I probably would have a very hard time living without that.
He said, you can keep my phone, just keep my espresso machine
Oh,
on
dude,
your counter.
you know what? I'd pay you to take my phone. You can have my phone, man. That'd give me a little peace and quiet for a little while, right?
You know, that's awesome because 90% of that answer I get from people is no, you can't have my phone. My
Oh,
phone is
take my
life.
phone. Please
And
take
so,
my phone.
That's incredible. Question number 3. What is something that makes you feel old?
Getting up in the morning. You know you're getting old when you get up. Cav, have you had this yet where you get up in the morning and you just kind of hurt?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like life now, right?
It's just,
Like,
it's not necessarily your bones aching. You just like,
it's like those first, it's just about those first like half dozen steps. Like you almost feel like you could fall over, right?
Yeah.
And it's like just you're just getting moving, like your body, like until you get into your 40s, that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
But you get into your 40s and suddenly you just start to feel like that. Now, what also makes me feel old is I'll have clients come in, I'm meeting with them and, you know, they'll hand me their driver's license or whatever, and they look like older adults to me. And I look at their driver's license, like born 2002. And I'm like, that makes me feel old as dirt, man. I'm like, dude, I was already practicing law in 2000. I mean, I was already like halfway done with my life by 2002. That makes me feel old.
Fair enough. So you survived my awareness segment, you survived my trading places segment, and you also survived my impulse Q&A. And you know, as a reward, let's promote. Let's talk about what you're working on, what's Cohn Stiles working on, what are you guys doing in the community that, you know, we can promote. You know, this is your platform of get it out there.
Well, so voting's a huge thing, right? I'm going to be doing some work with a couple of groups as the year wears on and we get closer to the election about just getting out the vote, especially getting out the youth vote. I don't know what it is. When I turned 18, man, I thought it was a big deal to go vote. And I don't know, is it still like that or am I?
I would think so. My daughter, she's 21 now, but when she was approaching adulthood and everything, she was really excited because she can finally vote. And she turned 18, I think it was that round of an election year.
Yeah.
So that's what she was really happy about it.
So, you know, I just hope that we can get more people to feel like that.
Yeah.
Excited to go vote, empowered to go vote, and not do it in a stupid fashion, right? In other words, actually like know what you're voting for.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, that's one of the things I'm going to be working on. Obviously, I've got a whole bunch of cases I'm working on. You know, our firm, if we're talking about just work, you know, we're a bit of a unique law firm in the personal injury world because it is very rare for a personal injury firm to survive from one generation to the next. And I mentioned, you know, it was originally Morris Chain's firm, and then it was Milt Younger's firm, and then it was my partner David Cohn's firm, and now it's being transitioned on to mine. And so for us to survive 4 generations is a big deal. I take that responsibility extremely seriously and realize I have that legacy on my shoulders.
Yes.
And so that's something that I'm constantly focused on. The other community stuff that I'm really working on, you know, we're not able to do community events. The board that I'm on, C.A.R.E, you mentioned it earlier, Children's Advocate Resource Endowment. We're the board that puts on the Village Fest every year. Okay? Can't do it this year.
Yeah.
We just had to announce last week that it's canceled for the year, but we still want to be able to give out money, right? And so we're trying to come up with alternative ways to fundraise. We give out anywhere from about 80 to 100 grand a year to local children's charities. And so, you know, we're brainstorming ways to raise money. I'm sure we're not the only nonprofit that's doing that. All nonprofits right now are suffering with this COVID thing because we can't hold those kinds of events that we used to hold.
Yes.
And so working on that, and the homeless stuff has a place in my heart. I feel like we've in a way we've kind of put the scarlet letter on the homeless at times. You know, we've tried to basically ostracize them. You know, they're criminals, they're this, they're that. And look, I'm not dumb. I know that there are occasionally people living on the streets who are up to no good. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. That happens. But that's the minority, right? The majority of them are just people down and out. And I don't care what the reason is that they're down and out, they're down and out, right? It could be their own doing, it could be some other...
Here we go again, the decision making. You
Yeah.
know, you made that decision that you did the LSAT, you did the other things so that, you know, the other test for business school, and you made the decision that changed your life. Certain times people make decisions and it may change their life where they, you know, stuff happens. I'm not going to, you know, any variable is different for the blueprint of how things occur. But it's so important, as we said throughout the entire show, you said it numerous times, to get back up. And what you're saying right now is that you're giving people an opportunity to get back up.
That's exactly correct. And that's the philosophy at the Bakersfield Homeless Center. And so we really partner with the Homeless Center in, putting our money where our mouth is, but also our time where our mouth is. And getting out there, trying to get the message out and do the right thing. And get people, put my hand out, try to help pull somebody else up.
Yes, that's the difference. That's the difference. Now, Matt, you notice my show, it's different, it's unique. There's some things like the other guys where we have to have segments because, radio shows and podcasts have to have segments.
Yeah.
So I do nothing like them, but I take that idea and I'm like, well, how do I keep all that energy going and close out? And, my viewers knows it's coming and I'm about to hit you with it. And it's, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Okay, you ready?
Always.
Okay, now we're living in weird times, right? You got the COVID thing going on, it's an election year, who knows what the future may hold. Where would you like to see your show 12 months from today?
On TV. I want it on a platform. I feel like there's...
Do you think TV is still a relevant platform?
TV will always
Depends
be...
on the type of media it is, though. I mean, we can say TV, and that's pretty being vague. But,
yeah.
Media is always going to be a bigger platform. It's bigger now. It's not bigger now because of social media, streaming sites. There's just too many. I want to say too many. There's just many outlets.
But do you think because I'm looking at, look, I got a 15-year-old at home, right? That kid doesn't even know how to turn the TV on, right? Because everything that he devours is on YouTube or some other social media format. Mm-hmm. And so do you see yourself on TV or having a YouTube channel with a following that's like TV?
Well, we currently have YouTube, but we're working on the following where, that's something that him and I have been strategizing with Bobby D and Snoop about getting more funding so that the views will go up and people can see more of the content because the content sells itself. Yeah. Everyone watches it, can relate, can find elements from any point from beginning to end to relate to and grow from. And so yes, YouTube is beautiful, but I feel like, at the end of the day, we do need to be on a big box so that the big box will get more viewers, whether it's through the stream, because stuff is available on YouTube, stuff is available on other websites. Right. So it curtails and creates a paper trail to what we're doing.
So 12 months from now, you'd like to be on broadcast?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to be watching for you.
Thank you.
And rooting for you.
Fun fact, I know he doesn't like when I talk about it, but oh well. He went to film school himself, and he...
Did you, kid? Mm-hmm. You got that on. No, you and I got to chat, man. We got to chat. I saw when I said avid, you perked up.
Yeah, because at the time I went, it was that transition there was nothing digital. You was either on Avids or linear.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know how to use those at that time, you were out of luck.
Yeah, I mean, what people outside of that industry don't understand is that the Avid and being able to edit in a non-linear fashion completely changed entertainment, period.
Yeah.
Because Avid also led to Pro Tools, owned by the same company. So if you're into music and you know what Pro Tools is, you know the impact that Pro Tools has had on that industry.
Come on.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so basically in that period of time, that 94, 95, 96, 97, was that stuff was starting up, changed everything.
Yeah. And after it, if you didn't know how to use an Avid,
you were a dinosaur. You were extinct.
You couldn't get a job.
Right? Is there anybody making music anymore on a 24 track?
No more DATs.
No. Like a DAT, right? Like that doesn't even exist anymore. Well, that stuff costs too much. You can do it all now on a computer.
Absolutely. No, Paramount. We'll talk about music stuff later. But Kev, he had a show that he had he produced it.
I produced and directed a pilot for a children's show back in the late 2000s.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and then I was just gonna say. Well, the big point is that he had a lady that was from the show Luke Cage that was on Netflix. What is she, a cop?
Yeah, she played the cop on Netflix. She currently has a show on CBS now where she plays the judge. I forget the name.
Was it Little Liars? No.
It's All Rise.
Okay,
It's
and
called
so
All Right.
she was on your show?
She
on
was
using
on
your
the
pilot?
When she was an upcoming actress, we auditioned her, and we didn't get a chance to pay her. You know how it goes in the
Yeah.
in that do a pilot, get the credit or whatever.
That's what they want. They
Yeah.
want. That's how they
I
get
don't
their
know if she
SAG
puts that
and
on her
their.
resume now.
Yeah.
But we definitely at that time we have her. If there's ever a chance she wins an Oscar, I can always pull that out. Because I also did talent management at that time, so we did a whole lot of things. And me and my ex at the time in Hollywood.
All right, so just like you, okay. Now I was in that same generation. I had a buddy in film school. We call him Big B. His name's Brian Blando. Shout out to my boy B. He now is the West Coast marketing executive for the Discovery Networks.
Wow.
Okay, so he's up there. But he used to be my sound guy. So he'd do sound, I do film. We got hired by, I don't even remember who hired us, but we got to go shoot, and this is a story for another day. I'm just going to tease it, okay? But we got to go shoot the Rap Olympics in Inglewood in probably, it was either 90, it must have been 96.
Yeah.
And at the time, we didn't know what the hell we're doing. But at the time, there was a little known rapper that showed up that blew everybody's mind. And he went by the candy name Eminem. And I actually have his cassette, and it says Eminem like the candy. They had to change his name because the Mars company sued him, or it's in a cease and desist. But that was him.
I was on the Cubs. Like you probably missed when he crossed over into a big.
That was it,
Yeah.
basically. And so, yeah, it's like that's my claim to fame. You've got somebody that could go on and win an Oscar. I shot the Rap Olympics with Eminem.
I still see a lot of our clients that we repped years ago. Some of them still sustained in this business, and they'll be on TV shows to this day. And I'm like, I repped him.
And that's a tough business, man.
Oh,
So I'm gonna tell you about myself. I was supposed to be a kid actor. I did a commercial, and then went through the national audition for Little Rascals to play Spanky.
Really?
Yes, I could show you my what is it? Not a mug shot, but my headshot.
shot much.
So
It's
my
better to
headshot-
call it a headshot.
Oh yeah, but it's more interesting when we say mug.
Yeah.
Mug. But I went through the national audition, went through the first round, got to the second round, got through the third round. I met Steven Spielberg.
Really?
Yes, and he was the producer of the movie Little Rascals, and he handpicked me for the final audition, which was 2 weeks later. Our car broke down from Bakersfield to LA, right before you get to the 14 interchange.
I know what you're talking about.
And there's a little spot right before you get off on Balboa, and there's an opening. That's where my stepdad's 1973 Ford Mustang stayed for about 8 hours until we got towed and got back to Bakersfield. I
And you
missed my
missed the
final
audition.
audition, and it resonates, but at the same time, it's how life goes.
But you picked yourself back up.
Oh yeah, I was a thespian in high school. I
Comes
didn't know
back
he
on.
was.
Yeah.
He was in high school 4 years drama. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
and I've known Kev now for like 6 years. But I acted all 4 years, directed plays, wrote plays, and it tailors on to what we're doing now.
Yeah, as we build up life experiences, right? It all lends itself to those things we do day to day. And so you just gotta, I guess if there's a theme of this podcast, it's pick yourself up, right? You pick yourself up and you take those things you've learned and you make the next one better.
Hey, that's a new thing. Brought to you by Matthew Clark.
Well, I don't know about that, but fair enough.
It's Contrast Uncut. It's season 3, episode 44. Man, big shout outs to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. I wouldn't be able to do incredibly dope stuff like interview Matthew Clark and talk about chain Cohn Stiles and go into his history and his struggles to success and what he's been able to overcome. And sometimes the battle's yourself, and he's been able to showcase, he fought through that mirror of what he saw and made it into what he wanted to become. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing all that with us.
Well, I can't thank you gentlemen enough, and what an experience. And I'll be sure to be watching not only this one, but future episodes.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be watching 1 year from today.
Yes, it's a claim. A fun fact, my buddy told me anything you're doing, you won't see any fruits from that labor for a year later, especially in entertainment.
Probably true. It's true in the law, by the way, too, especially in my business. Whatever I do today, I won't get paid on that. This is Matt Clark with Chain Cohn Stiles. Thanks for having me on Contrast Uncut. Shout out to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey!
Hip hop really taught me to give it all I got left. Wu-Tang taught us how to beat the projects and tell my story over beats and it could be a project. Look, how it all begun. Bum, skibbity bum, yeah. Grew up on that Nas, on that L, on that pun. Old soul when I was young. Crisscross, make them jump. Battle rapping for respect, my nigga, this ain't what you want. Can I kick it when I'm rhyming? Be a legend through Ebonics. Was a sticker boy, felt like sticky fingers played at Onyx. Can I live track 8? Feel like Jigga 96. Without a reasonable doubt, the album turned me into this. Shit, we always had dreams of being money making Mitch without jewelry on. Hit a jail pose, take a flick. Feel like Pac and keep your head up. Biggie shooting juice. Coach is still alive, just let me prove. King, nigga.
Everything that you do, baby, I salute you. Every dream that came true.
Wasn't that a really fucking good episode? I agree. Make sure you hit the like button down below. You hit that subscribe button that's red and white. Turn on your notifications and leave some comments. Follow the people involved. You can follow the show at the Contrast Uncut. You can follow the host at DJ Juan Dollars.
Don't forget me.
Oh yeah, make sure you follow my producer at The Real Kev King. And don't forget about Bobby D Presents or Uncle Snoop's Army.
The clothes.
Oh yeah, the fresh merch. Everything I got on. There'll be a link for you to buy the stuff. Fresh merch. Go ahead, follow them as well. Fresh Organics. Thank you everybody involved. Shout out to everybody that does the music. King Dreams. Cause of You, featuring my guy Mars. Shout out to JP Bangs for making the intro and being the music supervisor. And big shout out to Sequence for laying that incredible intro. Thank you everybody involved.